The first step when calculating an international airfare is to determine what is your GI, or your global indicator for the journey. Your global indicator is determined because of your origin city and where you're travelling to and your via points. So if we look at this first itinerary, we've got a routing from Perth just going straight through to Jakarta. Perth is in Australia, which is in Area 3, travelling through to Jakarta, which is also in IATA Area 3. So when travel is wholly within Area 3, the global indicator is EH. That's standing for travel via the Eastern Hemisphere. So look at this next itinerary. We have Sydney, Singapore to London. With this particular journey, we're starting in Sydney, which is in Area 3, going via Singapore, which is also in Area 3, and we're travelling through to London, which is in Area 2. When you check your global indicator table, you'll see that when journeys from Area 3 through to Area 2 are also known as EH journeys. We've still travelled wholly within the Eastern Hemisphere. So Perth to Jakarta can only be one global indicator because we're travelling wholly within Area 3. But with this journey, Sydney, Singapore to London, let's say we change it and we travel a different way to London, and we're going to go via LA. So we now have Sydney, LAX through to London. So we've got Sydney in Area 3, LAX, which is in IATA Area 1, travelling through to London in Area 2. So we've gone from Area 3 to Area 2 via Area 1, and that becomes an AP global indicator. AP standing for we've gone via the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. So it's really important to note that depending on your origin and destination cities, there can be multiple potential global indicators. Sydney, LA, London is AP. The first itinerary was Sydney, Singapore, London, and that was EH. So always check to make sure you've got the right global indicator because it's the first step in calculating your airfares. Using our same journey from Sydney, Singapore to London, we established we had an EH global indicator. The next thing is to look up what our fare is, or our NUC. Now, a NUC is a neutral unit of construction. It's a fictitious currency that is used around the world by all airlines and travel agencies so we can all calculate airfares using the same currency. As a matter of interest, one NUC is equivalent to $1 US. So I've gone to the companion fares manual, which you find on the OLS or the online learning site, and I've looked up an economy class one-way EH fare from Sydney to London, and that NUC is 4533.22. The next step of our fare calculation is to work out what is the maximum permitted mileage you're allowed to travel between our origin of Sydney and the destination of London. So we need to find out what is the MPM. So again, I've gone to the companion fares manual and I look up Sydney to London, global indicator of EH, and the MPM is 13,222. Next we have to see actually how many miles have we travelled on this journey. So from Sydney to Singapore we've got 3,900 and Singapore to London 6,102. Those mileages are called the TPMs, or the ticketed point mileages. That's the actual distance you're travelling on your journey from your origin between intermediate points like Singapore through to the destination of London. So when I add up my TPMs, that comes to 10,002. You'll see our TPM is lower than the MPM. In this case, that's great. That means our fare does not need to be surcharged. We write an M here saying our journey is in on miles. Now, there will be instances when your fare or your NUC needs to be surcharged. This happens when your TPM exceeds the MPM. It's called an EMS, or an excess mileage surcharge. So we've got a formula that we use to work out how much we have to surcharge our NUC, or our neutral unit of construction, by. We take the TPM, multiply it by 100 and divide it by the MPM. This will give you a resultant figure that you need to look at on a chart that you find in your notes under EMS. This figure will tell you whether you have to charge a 5, 10, 15, 20 or 25% surcharge onto your NUC. It's a really important point to remember. You're surcharging the fare. You only ever have to surcharge this fare is when your TPM is higher than your MPM. I've got a new itinerary now. It's still a journey from Sydney to London, but we're now going via Johannesburg. So Sydney to London via Johannesburg still falls under the global indicator of EH. Our NUC remains the same. Our MPM remains the same. All that's changed now, because we have a new journey, is our actual ticketed point miles. Now remember, the TPMs is the actual distance travelled on the journey. So we have Sydney to Johannesburg, 8893, and Johannesburg to London, 4817. My TPMs actually now exceed my MPM. But there's one more step we can do prior to looking at adding an EMS onto our NUC. This is called an EMA, or an excess mileage allowance. An excess mileage allowance is permissible only on certain journeys. And this is one of those journeys, and I'll show you why. If we've got Sydney here, and then we're travelling over to Johannesburg, and then up to London, look at the way we're travelling all the way over to South Africa and up to London, against if we'd gone via Singapore and we go directly. So when we did Sydney to Singapore to London, our journey was in on miles, our TPM was less, but because we've gone out of the way via South Africa, Johannesburg through to London, we're actually allowed to give our customers a TPM deduction, because we don't want to penalise people flying via South Africa on that route through to London. So looking at your notes under EMA, which is excess mileage allowance, I look at the chart and it says for travel between Australia and the UK and Europe via Johannesburg, I'm actually allowed a deduction of 518 miles. So what that means is I can deduct 518 from my TPM of 13710, and I have a new TPM of now 13192. My new TPM is lower than my MPM. So the next step was normally working out, have we got an excess mileage surcharge? And in this case, it's in on miles. Our TPM, or our new TPM, is lower than the MPM, and this is because we've been entitled to this excess mileage allowance. You'll find in your notes with excess mileage allowances that it normally happens between particular cities. So from Australia, travelling through to Europe, it's via Johannesburg or Harare. And if travel's wholly within Area 3, the key cities to look at on your journeys are normally Delhi and Mumbai and Karachi and Islamabad. They're the sort of warning cities that you might be entitled to reduce your total TPMs by using an EMA.